right, and welcome back to Trail Talks. We're here with some of the athletes who participated in the 2023 World Trail and Mountain Running Championships in Innsbruck, Austria. So joining us, we have from Norway, Stian Angermund, from Switzerland, Judith Wyder, and from Germany, Katharina Hartmuth. And welcome to each of you. Really excited because you guys all competed at some different events earlier this month, and want to hear about each of your experiences. Maybe to start with Katharina. So I understand this was your first World Championships. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And tell me just a little bit about the process for Team Germany in terms of selection and how it sort of made it onto your race calendar to go for the World Championships.
Yes, I have to say it was quite unexpected for me. So the last year, after my third place at TDS, I got a message from like the German, I don't know, head coach or what do you call this person? And back then he already said like, hey, would you maybe be interested? There is a World Champs next year. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm the right person to pick here for the German team, because I know, especially with the women, there are so many strong women in Germany for the long trail. So I was quite surprised, but also happy, of course. And then they came back to me in spring and asked again if I would be still interested. And I mean, it's a World Champs, and it was in Innsbruck, so that's very close to where I live in Switzerland. So yeah, I was quite honored, obviously, to go there and to represent the team. And yeah, that was the way it worked.
And so you ran in the long trail event and had an amazing race, finished second in the field. So just tell me a little bit about your experience. What was the course like in the long trail, and yeah, just any observations you had in your first international race?
Yeah, I think the course, it really suited me. At first I was a bit afraid that it would be too short, because I'm used to running in longer competitions, so more than 100K usually. But then when I realized that there was so much climbing involved, and also, yeah, maybe a few technical sections, then yeah, I felt quite confident, yeah, to run it. And yeah, I mean, in the end, it was a great day. We had luck with the weather. So compared to Judith and Stian, who had the rain the day before, there was no rain or no thunderstorms for us. I mean, it got a bit hot in the afternoon, but other than that, it was just perfect conditions for running. And I mean, we had to take the alternative route. We couldn't go up because of the snow that was still there on the original route. But I think in the end, it was still a beautiful course. I really, really enjoyed it. I was glad that there was so much climbing involved, because that usually helps me if it's more of a slow race. And I think it was a comparatively slow race in the end due to this climbing. Yeah, and it was great. I mean, the atmosphere, that was really cool to have it as it was a World Championship, to have all these spectators there. And you really felt that the sport is, people know the sport there, and they live it, and they came out and cheered us quite a lot. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And so the long course was supposed to be about 85 kilometers, and I think maybe about 5,500 meters of climbing. But because of a last minute change because of weather, it went up to about 88 kilometers and around 6,000 meters of climbing. But it probably felt more like a 100K course, I would guess, just given the amount of climbing and technicality.
Yes, and also the length of the race. I mean, I think the winner for the men's, it was only below 10 hours, so that's quite long for 88K.
Yeah. And Judith, so this was not your first World Championships. You had competed in Thailand, which was the 2021 World Championships, because of COVID got delayed until last fall. But you competed in the mountain races in Thailand, and then you switched over to the short trail in Innsbruck. Tell me about that transition.
Yeah, so yes, it was my second one after Thailand. I was injured for a while last year, or the 2 years before actually. So for me, it was perfect that the World Championships were 1 year later. So I had the chance to compete something last year because I couldn't compete all the summer, and this was like last second racing for me in November. But actually the trail short would have been too long already. It is still like 3-4 hours competition time was way too much, since I was actually not really running until the races were going. So I was just mostly on the bike and a little bit uphill running, but it was really a little. So this uphill races, or this uphill and up and down, was just perfect for me to come back to competition. But I mean, short trail is what I love the most, to run a bit longer, to see more mountains. And so it was always the plan to try to go for the short trail in Innsbruck, even though 45 kilometers for me then was already a long race. So I was not sure if I will make it to the short trail actually, but I'm really happy I did, and the preparations went quite well. So yeah, I'm really back where I love to be and where I belong, I hope.
Yeah, and I think like the long trail, running a little bit longer than the distance might suggest. Would you say that was the same with the short trail in terms of the course and the elevation and the technicality?
Yeah, so I mean, it was quite a long race in time-wise. We had also quite many uphill meters, but I mean, we knew it beforehand. So I think I was always expecting to have close to 5 hours, which I in the end did, and also probably that the men will have more than 4:10 or 4 hours, which were like set to be. It was quite, yeah, I mean, we ran a little bit on the course. It's not a technical course, but since you're not many times able to run really fast, it makes you slow. And then, of course, the uphill meters, they were like really steep, so you're quite slow there. But yeah, in the end, it was good that it was that long, because I really enjoyed it. And especially the last few kilometers, they were beautiful. So it was really worth going up all the way there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful descent down into Stubai for the short course and a finish in the town there. And you had a fantastic result as well. So you finished second in the short trail. You had also done well in the mountain running events in Thailand. You had a top 10 in the classic. But were you happy with your result in Austria?
Yeah, of course I was happy, especially coming from injuries. I actually had a hard time sometimes choosing between the uphill race or up and down race. But as far as it was so much asphalt on the up and down, it was like perfect for me to come back on this trail race. And yeah, I mean, I did what I could, and that was the second place. So I was really happy with the race.
Yeah. And then we have also with us another sort of back-to-back world champion competitor. So Stian, you obviously had a really great race in Thailand, and you were able to defend your title in the short trail in Innsbruck. Tell us about your experience in Austria and how it compared to Thailand.
Yeah, it was very beautiful to run in Austria, and I really like the area. Like they have beautiful mountains, and the village of Innsbruck is beautiful. So the races was very different, especially when it comes to racing time. In Thailand, I was racing 3 hours and 8 minutes, if I remember correct, and here in Innsbruck was 4 hours and 19 minutes. So it was the racing time was way longer, and then. It was not as warm, luckily, in Innsbruck. I will say we had actually very good condition with some rain, and was not too warm. So I think it was really beautiful, perfect to run there.
Yeah, there was some inclement weather towards the end of the short trail race, and I think unfortunately there were about 40 or 50 runners towards the end of the field who had to actually get cut off. But for probably yours and Judith's race, the weather was mostly clear.
Yeah, right? It had been some rain I saw in the last downhill, so there was quite slippery. It was I was sliding around in all the turns downhill, but it was fun. So yeah, we were very lucky with the weather, and then too bad for the last one in the trail marathon that they couldn't finish.
Yeah. And just in terms of the event itself, so you mentioned the course was a little bit different. With the race being back in Europe, did you feel that sort of changed the sort of the competitiveness in terms of the field, in terms of who was best suited to the course?
Yeah, I guess like trail running is very big in Europe, and a lot of us that are in like the top runners come from Europe, and we're used to this kind of trail, so maybe it suits us better. But I think it's nice that the event goes around and we in different places, so we can run in different type of terrain. So yeah.
Okay.
I think the World Championships are getting more competitive, because it's also getting together. They have like made it more popular, and it's like on a place in a year where I think people want to run. So last year it was kind of like November. Many had their season already done. It's a long flight, so probably this was like affecting the competitiveness. But this year I think it increased a lot, and I hope it will even get better for the next few years.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's good that they combined it with the federations. Like you have the mountain running and ITRA and like all the federations working together to make the event bigger. So I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, and certainly it seemed like the size of the teams, a lot more countries were sending full delegations, and always depends on sort of how far each country needs to fly to go to the host, but probably a lot of the European countries were able to send full squads to Innsbruck, and they weren't to Chiang Mai. But really curious for each of you. You guys are all very competitive, elite runners. How would you describe the differences between the atmosphere in a World Championship type event versus a big private race that you would typically run?
I can just say it from my side. I mean, I've always been an athlete who has been competing with the national team since I've been an orienteer. And therefore also the World Championships were always the most important competition. So for me to run with a Swiss team behind myself and to run in a team as well, it makes it special. And I think also the ambience itself in Innsbruck was really nice. There were lots of spectators on the trail, especially on the shorter distances, of course, because you get it more together, but also actually on the long trail, I heard there were lots of guys just up in the mountains, and which makes it really special. And compared with a race from a shoe distributor, for example, I think it is really cool to have like a big history behind a race, and maybe this makes it special as well. And I think that's why I want to run these races as well. For example, like Siersinal in Switzerland, it's just the story and the history behind is so special. But still, World Championships, for me, they should be the highest thing to achieve, because I think it makes the sport grow even better, and it makes it stronger for the future.
And I think because it is a World Championship, then people are most runners are really aiming for be at the best shape on that race, and that also makes it more exciting, that the field will be very strong and people are like building up to be at their best shape as possible for that race, and that makes it fun.
Yeah, maybe to add with the team. So for me, it was actually the first time to run with a team, basically. So with the national team, and I mean, we are so used to compete just for ourselves. And I mean, it was still a competition where we had first and foremost to compete for ourselves, but it was very special for me to compete in a team, especially because we knew we had quite a strong team with the women in Germany in the long trail, and we knew we could get a team medal as well. And in the end, I mean, I really enjoyed getting that medal, like with the second place for myself. But then it was even more special, I think, to have the possibility to celebrate also with the others, because we also received that team medal. And I think that is really special, because usually you don't have this in any other race. And yeah, I'm quite excited to see how it will unfold in the future with the different races, especially for the ultra community, because we have these races like UTMB, and I think if you would ask people, they would still say UTMB is way more important than the World Championships. So let's see how it will possibly change in the future. But I think in the moment it depends also a bit maybe on the distance, what people would say, which is the more important race. But I think in the ultra community, it would still be other races that until today have are more important, because also they have this history, as Judith said.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a fair point. And I think the nature of ultra running is there is a limit to the number of competitions that you can do as A races in any given year, and you need to plan your calendar. And I know that with the World Championships being knocked out of the normal schedule, 2 World Championships less than a year apart is a big commitment for a lot of runners who are having to balance other big races. So the next World Championship is going to be 2 years away in Canfranc in Spain, and it'll be interesting to see sort of how many runners make that an A race in the respective calendars, you know, being able to spend next year doing whatever they wish. Yeah, how did competing at this year's World Championships require any of you to push back another race that you might have done, or how did it affect your competitive schedules?
Yes, for me, of course, it was I have to push back, since I'm not able to race more marathons every year, like at mostly just like 1 or 2 marathons a year. So I had to postpone UTMB for next year, or OCC. Mm-hmm. But I mean, for me, it's okay. I choose that way because I hope it helps trail running to grow and make World Championships even more important. And that's my statement. But others, they do it differently, and that's also okay. So I think we have just to make your choices or my choice and then go this path. And I think that's cool and that's fun to go your own way.
I mean, it was convenient that it was at the beginning of June now. I mean, it is quite early for the season, especially for the ultra season. So I think it was quite good, because usually the long races, they are only in July and August. So time-wise, so for me, it was not such a big problem now.
Yeah, for me, the World Championship is the ultimate thing to run. So for me, it was like it was not a difficult choice.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of runners who have the chance to compete for their countries, it's I think it's probably the same. You know, it's not always that you get to put on the national team jersey and run for your country. Now, just in terms of the event itself in Innsbruck, it's a different style of race. You know, there's obviously a lot of other races happening in the same week. A lot of other athletes wearing their sort of their national team outfits, milling about. Any highlights that you guys wanted to share outside of your own races for the week in Innsbruck?
I would say just watching the other races. Like, for example, the ultra race, I was there at kilometer 38 or something, and saw most of the runners come by, and that was so much fun. And also I didn't actually see the uphill, but up and down for the last day was like fantastic. The atmosphere and to watch the other runners, that was fun.
Yeah, I really loved that as well. I mean, I have to admit that I had to watch most of the races in the live stream, but even that, I mean, the coverage, it was so well done. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. And then on the last day after my own race, then we also went and cheered our own like runners on the up and down course. And yeah, that was it was really cool. I mean, it really felt a bit like UTMB week, because there it's a bit similar that you also have each day is somehow a different race. But now with the team then, and then you could support the other team members in each race, so that was really cool.
And I think it was very nice that now the trail marathon and the ultra were 2 different days, so then we can follow the other race. Like in Thailand was like you have no idea about the ultra at all. Like there's only, for me, I was only focusing on the marathon.
Yeah, so the way that they scheduled it in Thailand was, I believe, just 3 days of races. They started with the VK, and then the trail, short trail and long trail were held on the same day, just an hour apart to space out the field, and then the classic on day 3. Whereas in Innsbruck, it was 1 event per day, with the VK, short trail, long trail, and then the classic. And I agree, I think it gave everyone a chance to cheer on different races. I think probably for the mountain runners, gave them an extra day of rest in between those 2 races. And I did see a few people who combined, the short trail with the classic, which maybe you wouldn't be able to do if they were on back-to-back days.
But there were some who combined the uphill with the short trail. That was a bit rad.
I actually had planned it to do that, but it's actually true. Like, since it's uphill and then short trail, it's just like not even 12 hours between when you come back to the hotel and when you have to leave your room again. So it's too short. So for that, to combine that, which would be quite nice to do actually, the ultra and the 40 would have to change to have like these 24 hours at least between this. But for me to combine it with the up and down, it would not have been possible because my pain in my legs were too much after the downhill, since it was 1400 meter downhill and we went quite fast. It would not have been possible for me.
I was watching the uphill on the television, and it looks so much fun. And when I saw it, like, oh, I wish I was doing that race and the trail marathon, because it looks really beautiful.
I was cheering on the slope with my family, and it was just perfect. Yeah, because I just needed to have something else beside my races. So it was perfect to be there with the family and to cheer my teammates. And it was hard actually watching it because I really was thinking I could be here. But in the end, it was a smart choice because, as I said before, it's not smart to do too many races. So for me, at least, so it was perfect to do this choice.
Yeah. I would give the uphill probably the gold medal for the most enjoyable spectator event. I watched it from the top of the chairlift or whatever you call it. Just where the course went onto the sort of open slope, so you can kind of see everyone. You can see the entire field sort of thinning out there, but it's amazing just the speed in which those VK runners go right from the start. It's a 45-minute race essentially, so they're going at faster than half marathon pace, but man, like it's frantic. I think the trail events are they're so different. Even if you're racing them aggressively, you're still sort of managing hours of running rather than sort of tactically battling for positions and getting through narrow gates when the field is not yet thinned out and all of that. So in looking forward into sort of future world championships, could you see yourself competing in a different event than you've done in the last time, or what are sort of each of your plans in terms of future championships?
It would be great to come back, but I have to admit that for me it would need to be at least it would be the long trail again and at least the distance. So I hope actually that there would be a longer trail in the future, maybe a bit more than 100K or somewhere between 100K and 100 miles. That would be my favorite distance. So if this is the case, or if it is similar to what we had this year, then I would love to come back. But I don't really see myself on a short trail or even shorter, I have to admit.
Stian, you going to give the VK a try next time?
Yeah, there is a European Championship next year, so I haven't seen the course, but maybe that could be fun. So, but I'm also a fan of skyrunning, so I might do the World Championship in skyrunning next year as well. So, and then we'll see in Karl Frank in 25. It could be fun to run the trail marathon there as well, but we'll see. I haven't planned anything yet, so the future is just full of opportunities. So we'll see.
And how about yourself, Judith? And Stian brought up the European Championship. So this is something that that ITRA and the World Mountain Running Association's trying to promote is regional championships, sort of in the years where the worlds aren't being held. Is that something that sort of would tempt you?
Yes, for sure. I want to go for the European Championships as well. I've never been running them, so it would be fun. But for me, it will always be a hard choice between the distances, because I rather have these 30K of races, since the trail short has been 45 plus the last 2 years. It's always a big choice between these up and down or the short trail. So I actually, for myself, I would love if the short trail stays under 40. It would be a fast race, but not going towards ultra. Or up and down, which is really technical. That would be also very cool. And I would love to do that, because since I love fast races, that would be just amazing. So I will see how it goes, since the distances always are decided quite late. I have to see what will be in 2025. But I will stick to shorter or short trail, but never towards long trail probably. But there are lots of choices to be done.
You're not interested in Katharina's suggestion about a miler World Championship?
Why not? Because I think, since I say UTMB is still the most important races, why not? But I think UTMB will stay the most important race, and World Championships can be a great alternative with a bit shorter race for the best ultra fast runners. So I don't know, but I think we have not to play these two races against each other, or also other series. Just make the World Championships even more important, and to make it more popular for all runners.
Yeah.
So that's maybe not my suggestion about under 40 is maybe not the one which is the best for all runners, but for myself it would be cool to have an under 40 race on the short trail.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. And just before we wrap up, I'm just really curious in terms of what each of you are have on the calendar next in terms of races. So what's your next big project coming up?
Well, so I just came back from another race. I briefly decided to do another sport. No, I did a long distance triathlon last weekend. So it was a bit close towards after the World Champs, but it worked out pretty well, so I'm quite happy. But now I want to fully come back to the trails.
What distance were you competing?
It was the long distance, so Ironman distance.
Ironman distance. Oh, okay. Was it fun?
It was a lot of fun, yeah. But I realized in the marathon that I really don't like flat marathons. So
you need to choose a hilly version then.
Yes, exactly. There are hilly versions, but I prefer to only run the trails and skip the swim and the bike, I think. So yeah, now my next race would be the Eiger Ultra Trail. It's already in 2 weeks, so I'm not yet finally decided if it all works out, but I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. So let's see.
But you've had some good luck at Eiger in the past.
Yeah, last year I was able to take the win there, so I would have to need to fight for that win again. Maybe it's a bit more tricky than the second time, I guess. So let's see. But then the real goal is go back to Chamonix, of course, in UTMB week. I'm not sure yet if it works out with UTMB because I have not qualified via a race. So I need some luck yet to get into UTMB. But if it does not work out, then I will do the TDS again, which I've already done last year. So one of the 2 long distances.
Yeah. How about yourself, Judith?
I will go back to Golden Trail World Series in 2 weeks in Canazei at the Dolomites. And do probably 4 out of the Golden Trail, the last 4 out of the Golden Trail Series, and hope to qualify for the final this year. Versus next year, I will try to qualify for OCC and see if that works out, because for me it's too much to have another 50K this year. So this year I will focus on the Golden the next few months.
Okay, yeah. And how about you, Stian?
Yeah, I will also go to run the Dolomite Sky Race in it's a 2 weeks time. So that'll be fun. Yeah. And after that, I will do a race in the I don't remember the name of the race because I'm horrible with names, but it's a race in the mountain running series that is close to Chamonix the following weekend. And then I will run Commeur double vertical and OCC. So that'll be fun. And the autumn, I'm not sure about how that will place out yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone deserves an off season at some point. So it sounds like it'll be pretty busy summers for each of you. So, all right. Well, no, really appreciate each of you sort of sharing your experiences. I thought it was a really amazing week of running that the local organizing committee put on. And I think it's always just an amazing experience to see all of the international teams coming in. Obviously, you have sort of the big powerhouse nations, but also seeing some of the smaller countries and some athletes that are getting the chance to run an international race for the first time. I think it really sort of brings the level of the sport up everywhere, and it's a really nice development. We're talking about the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships. The 2023 edition was just held in Innsbruck, Austria. It was an incredible week of racing, showcasing some of the best athletes from around the world. And in this episode, we're going to talk to some of the athletes who took part in that event, as well as some of the organizers who helped put this very large event on behind the scenes. And we're going to start with the organizers. So I have some very special guests with us. First off, joining us from northern Italy, in the Dolomites, we have the head of running competitions and events at World Athletics, Alessio Punzi. Welcome, Alessio.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yes, our pleasure. And then normally from Hong Kong, but joining us from sunny UK, we have the president of the International Trail Running Association, Janet Ng. How are you, Janet?
I'm very well. How are you, Jeff?
I'm well. Still, coming off the buzz of a really great World Championships. It's a really remarkable event just in terms of the number of countries participating, some of whom were able to send really large delegations and have long histories, competing internationally in the sport. And then you had some other countries that maybe were making their first appearance or their biggest appearance there. Trail running, I think, is a sport that's growing and evolving, and the participation at the World Championships, I think you can see that reflected. But maybe for those who don't know as much about the World Championships and sort of its history, would one of you, maybe Alessio, be able just to explain the context of the event, what it entails, its history, everything?
Yeah, with pleasure. So this event was ideated, if you wish, in 2017, more or less. And the idea was to merge two existing and already pretty successful world championships in this broad off-road running space. Mountain running world championships have been existing since the mid-80s, 85 if I remember serves me well. And at some point they even had long-distance mountain races, which essentially are the same product as the what we call short trail now. At the other side of the rift, if you wish, or the divide, you had trail running championships, which were organized since 2007 by the International Association of Ultra Runners. And a few years later, ITRA joined them. When ITRA joined them and really stepped up, I think that was in 2015 with the fourth or fifth edition in Nancy, France. So when ITRA joined, the event really went up a notch. In 2017, I had just started my tenure at World Athletics, and I was lucky enough to go to a tiny, beautiful place in the Italian Apennines called Badia Pratalia, where the then IAU ITRA Trail Worlds were being held, and it was beautiful. You could see that there was lots of potential. There was still a feeling of a small event. There were still lots of federations that normally would send representations to big events, which were not there. So together with our friends at ITRA and WMRA and with Hillary at the IAE, we started to wonder, what if we just consolidate everything into one big off-road running championships, one event that certainly everyone will look at and say, this is the World Championships, as opposed to the proliferation of acronyms and privately owned challenges that you have worldwide. So we started to work with this idea. Probably none of us was drunk back then, but we may as well have been, because it was way more difficult than we thought. In my then naive mind, it was just a matter of, what's the issue? It just we now have an event with 2 races. We make it an event with 4 races. It was way more complex than that for a number of reasons that we may investigate later if we have time. But judging from what you have seen in Innsbruck, the result was really good. And the event that together we delivered in Innsbruck was exactly what we had in mind, all of us, myself, Giant, Enrico, Jose, Sarah Rowell, Thomas Scharf, when we started to play around with this idea. Big event, the whole off-road running community coming together in a major destination, in a destination that really has the brand to appeal to the broader community of athletes.
Okay, so basically we had this World Mountain Running Championship sort of history, and then the trail side of things, and it basically was a logical, marriage to bring those together and to pool the resources and the interest and to have one mega event that brings together these 2 aspects of the sport. Is that
yes,
sort of
yes.
a fair?
Yeah, I think it was. Now you use the word mega event. I would be careful with that, because as much as I would like this to be a huge Olympics of off-road running championships, we have to be considerate of the size, because if it becomes too big, this event cannot have 4,000 athletes. We would run out of places with the hotel ability to host it. But it definitely is probably the biggest.
Okay, and the first combined World Mountain and Trail Running Championships, that was the 2021 edition, but that didn't
Correct.
go off exactly on schedule, as a number of things in our world didn't. Do you want to just give us sort of a summary of in terms of what the planned schedule was for World Championships, and then sort of how that had to be adjusted?
Some good memories there. So in 2019, there were the final standalone editions of the Mountain Running Championships in Argentina, and of the trail with IAU and ITRA in Portugal. We had decided already back then that there would not be an edition in 2020, so we didn't have to cancel anything in 2020. And in 2019, we opened bids for 2021, and the interest was quite enormous. We probably received around 40 expressions of interest. 4 or 5 of them became bid, but then COVID hit. And when COVID happened, the only really reliable bid that we found ourselves with was the one in Thailand. Historically, one of the things that we wanted to achieve with this big World Championships under the World Athletics aegis was to go to places where you normally don't have this kind of World Championships. yes, the Alps, the Rockies, the Pyrenees are the hotbed for the sport. But one of the ways through which World Athletics can add value is bringing this to new geography. So it really played well. The interest from Thailand. That's what we wanted to achieve. However, COVID happened. We awarded the event to Thailand, and then, Janet, you will remember this, for a year and a half, we weren't really able to do any site visits. The team in Thailand was massively backed by the tourism authority of Thailand. So from a political and financial standpoint, no issues there. I had worked with them already on some other projects, so we knew that they meant it, but they didn't have much experience in, especially mountain races, and certainly never did a World Championship. So it took a lot of Zoom calls, and it's difficult enough to organize, let's say, non-operational work on Zoom. Organizing site visits and the practicalities of a race in the woods over Zoom was very challenging. We were finally able to, at some point, it became obvious to us that 2021 was not realistic anymore. At first, we pushed to February 22, but then almost immediately we said, no, let's make it to let's push it to November. And that was not particularly well received by the athletes. We were kind of losing credibility, or should I say rather, some of the athletes thought that this was never going to happen because World Athletics is not really historically been involved with this. Thailand doesn't really have an event that normally you would see as a potential World Championship candidate. So it was difficult. There was a lot of convincing to do in early 2021. At some point in the spring of 2022, a delegation was able to go there, scout the courses, and eventually the whole thing miraculously came together. That was nothing short of a miracle, especially if you consider that the LOC, some parts of the LOC had, but most of the LOC didn't have any experience in organizing this kind of championships. So just to give you a little, to let you into something that happened at the event, so much was the stress to deliver these championships that many members of this organizing committee just left the company. They burned out. So stressful it was for them to manage, on the one hand, the expectations from the tourism authority of Thailand, and on the other hand, World Athletics, but even more WMRA and ITRA, which were the technical partners. Rightly so. ITRA and WMRA were demanding stuff because they represent, just like World Athletics does, the needs of the athletes. So it's not a matter of having an event that looks good; it has to be right for the athletes. And there was a lot of negotiation to be made, but eventually it was beautiful. We had, if I remember well, 49 or 50 teams in challenging conditions in a post-COVID year, so we really exceeded our expectations. And Innsbruck was just the next logical step.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, for the Thailand edition, organizing any event coming out of COVID with countries coming in from every continent and changing travel rules, obviously amazing to hold that event at all, let alone as successfully as happened. But now that Innsbruck has happened, that happened less than a year after the Thailand World Championships, which were technically the 2021 World Championships. So now are we back to a every 2-year cycle, and that's the plan going forward?
Yes, we are, and that is the plan for a couple of reasons, a few reasons really. One is that, especially in the trail side of the sport, as you taught me, because I'm not from the sport, but a number of you have explained this to me. Athletes run for their trail teams, so you cannot really ask them to be away from the privately organized running event scene for too long. It's fine for them to do it once a year or once every 2 years. The second reason is that we are trying to have continental championships on the alternate years. European Athletics, which is the World Athletics affiliated area association for this continent, has had their first edition last year in 2022. They call it Off-Road Running Championships, but it's essentially the same product, although they have only one trail race versus the two that we have. The 2024 edition will be in France, not far from Annecy, and we are proactively pushing our associations from other regions to establish their own continental or transcontinental events. Maybe in the case of Asia Pacific, they should do one. And the same would apply to to Pan American Athletic Association, which makes sense rather than having two smaller. And then, yeah, probably, if I remember well, ITRA also did a survey of their membership base some years ago, and a biannual frequency was the preferred one for the World Championships. Also, you don't want to, water down the product too much. If you do it every year, inevitably you will not have the best athletes. And getting to an event that has the ability to attract the superstars of the sport is a clearly shared goals that we all have here. So if you ask me what do you expect from Canfranc, maybe we'll talk about it later. We really want to have the best athletes. I'm not saying even remotely that we didn't have the best athletes in Innsbruck. If you look at the ITRA Performance Index, and maybe Janet can elaborate on that, the races were really, really high quality. We want to make sure that come September 2025, all of the stars of the sport, they just know that they have to be in Canfranc because the ultimate race will be there.
Yeah, it's very, very fascinating sort of history and sort of where the international aspect of trail running fits into the broader context of the sport. I think is something that is relatively new to the sport, or at least sort of having the events be sort of as high profile and all together. It's an exciting new chapter. We talked a little bit about the different organizations sort of behind the scenes. So World Athletics is one. Janet, maybe you could talk a little bit about ITRA's specific role in terms of putting on an event like the World Championships.
Yeah, for sure, Jeff. So ITRA, as Alessio mentioned, we started getting involved in the trail championships in Annecy, so a few editions back. And I guess our role is very much because of where ITRA stands in terms of this space. Like we have, I would say, good knowledge of and expertise regarding trail running, and we are very close to the runners. Our members are runners and organizers, so we do get quite a good feel of, for example, the performance level of runners, how events are organized, especially trail events, like what are the important aspects of organizing a trail event. So together with the other parties, our partners, the WMRA and IAU, we are very much involved in the technical and operational side of things, and to make sure that everything conforms with what is expected of a championship level race of this level with such high level elites. And so we're very much involved in that, and I think we kind of speak the language of trail running naturally, and it's something that perhaps we think that like we can help in terms of the execution of the events, as Alessio mentioned. I mean, some of the events may be organized by bodies that have varied standards or varied expectations, like when they organize their own events, or maybe they don't even organize their own races. The other thing that we, off the back of, because our familiarity with runners, we do quite a lot in terms of the communication, in terms of the races. So for example, with Innsbruck, we've got the whole team came over from Chamonix, which is where our pro team is based, to come over and cover the media side, the communication side, so that people around the world can get a good feel of what the championship is about. So I think that, like, for us, we do focus quite a lot on the communications of the event, plus the technical the technical aspect. We together with our partners and World Athletics, that's really where we have to focus to make sure that the event does satisfy what runners need, and yeah, for a world-class event.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Janet. And just in terms of putting an event like this on, you're dealing with national sporting bodies, local organizing committee, sponsors, race logistics, health and safety. What are the biggest challenges that each of you find in terms of specifically this event? What tends to occupy the most amount of time for your organizations, poses sort of the biggest challenges to solve?
If I may start, Jeff, one important player that is not talking today that we didn't mention is the local organizing committee.
Yeah.
All the logistics side of things, health and safety, mountain rescue authorizations, and all of that, it was dealt with by them, by the Innsbruck local team. We had nothing to do with them. Obviously, we had guidelines. There were lots of meetings. Expectations were clearly detailed, but it wasn't us going to the Austrian Alpine Rescue Service and negotiate for services. What World Athletics did in this project was essentially coordinating relationships between the four bodies that, in practical terms, delivered the event: the LOC, plus World Mountain Running, ITRA, and IAU. And also we helped on a few specific areas. One was the medical setup. We had 2 or 3 people from our medical management team, which normally delivers in full these events when it comes to the World Championships. However, here they made sure that the medical management of the local organizing committee was up to scratch. And clearly there were no issues. They were on the top of their game. There was a inevitable level of coordination when it comes to anti-doping results management and testing authority bits. So not the operations, but the governance side behind it, if you wish. We were instrumental in finding the hosts. And then there was the unglamorous but very important work of balancing everyone's needs, because these associations, these associations have certain needs and expectations. The LOC has different expectations. Sometimes there are diverging expectations. I spent an awful lot of time trying to mediate between these different pushes, and even within the LOC, right? You had the technicians who wanted certain things, and then you had the politician, the tourism, and the marketing people who wanted other things. So to give you an example, there was a pretty dramatic change to the course layout in the city of Innsbruck that was decided last minute, just because what the city wanted wasn't accepted by the partners, by the WMRA and ITRA. So yeah, that was our role. And also, now that I'm thinking about it, because you work on autopilot, it's only after the event that you think of how have we provided value. Also in terms of race entry, relations with the teams, we were also quite central there, because historically this event has been open to WMRA affiliates and IAU affiliates. This time, since World Athletics is involved, we said you can only enter a team, a national team, if you represent a World Athletics affiliated member federation. Now, in the vast majority of cases, no issues there. Italy, Switzerland, USA, but in some cases there were trail running communities which were very loosely, if at all, associated with their national athletics body. Now, we cannot say, we cannot cut out the member federation, because that is our constituent base. World Athletics is essentially the Congress or the member federation. So we had to explain to the member federation why you have to be involved in this, why you want to be involved in this part of the sport, what is it you have to do to make sure that trail running is over time developing your country, what it means to send a team, and so on and so forth. It was good fun, and we laid great foundations for something even better in 2025. The sport is not new, but certainly the involvement of athletics associations in the part of the sport, with some exceptions, that is new. And together with ITRA, we're really trying to bridge that gap. Working with ITRA is very important for us, because without them and the other parties, but now I'm talking specifically about ITRA, which represents the industry, the sport, more than the bureaucracy of the sport. ITRA doesn't have national federations. ITRA has affiliated teams and runners. Working with them is important so that someone like you doesn't think, oh, here's another international governing body trying to do something that they might not necessarily know how to do, but they want to be involved because they heard that it's hip. No, it's World Athletics creating value using our assets, and for the rest of it, using ITRA and WMRA and EU because they know the sport better than we do. They have the technical expertise, they have the network, the ability to speak, as Janet said, your language.
I should add that, I mean, I agree with Alessio, and I think the challenge, back to your question, Jeff, on, like, for me, I think it's that because of the nature of a championship, it involved the LOC, it involves 4 partners, it involves a lot of coaches, a lot of teams from everywhere around the world. I think just to coordinate everyone and making sure that we meet the expectations of everyone, and everyone is on the same page about what is supposed to happen during those 4 days. I think that is challenging, but it's also very satisfying if when things work out and you produce this amazing festival of high-level competition. And then I think with the race itself, the challenge is to make sure that in a race of this competitive level, I mean, we see it, we look at the statistics that we've generated, and it is the most competitive race now, like in the world. We have to make sure that it is a fair race, and we have all the standards and everything, all the things in place to make sure that once, somebody like pull the starting gun, everything will be going smoothly in order for all the athletes to be able to come and compete in a good race, a fair race.
No, and when you say it's the world's most competitive trail race, you look at the starting list for all of those events, and there are very competitive races across the calendar, but the depth of the quality in these races is really second to none, and very special to be able to take part. The World Championships for this year are over. Could you guys share maybe sort of one highlight, sort of a favorite performance, just something that you'll remember during the event itself?
Well, a couple of memories really that spring to my mind. One is this event has been organized pretty hastily. The LOC didn't have a sufficiently long time now, because they were only told, I believe, well, they had 10 months. Yeah. 10 months, which for an event of that magnitude isn't really big. And it was a small team, the LOC. So what really filled me with emotion was seeing finally after the event, literally after the last race, before the final concert started, the faces of the two key people, operations-wise, finally relaxed and smiling. That kind of reminded me why it's great to be in this industry. The satisfaction you get. Also, working for World Athletics, we're in the business of organizing kind of huge international festivals, right? So to me, seeing 67, how many were they, Jan? 67, 68 member federations line up with all of their flags, and thinking that they really converge on different parts of the world for the event, that is very powerful. And some of these member federations weren't remotely close to fight for a top 10 or even a top 50 position for the matter. That's irrelevant. They still wanted to be part of it because that's what that's what they do. That's what the athletes do, and it was wonderful. There were teams like San Marino, Malta. I don't want to name others, but they sent full teams. And then for us, when you see that a member federation that has very few, a very small likelihood of winning anything, is still so committed, even financially committed in sending teams, this speaks volumes of how interesting the sport is, but also how credible it is. You don't invest that much money to send a team to an event that you don't really trust in.
I think I echo back to what I started in the beginning, just seeing all these teams, runners, and their coaches or leaders overcoming all the challenges to get there. And I mean, I know of so many teams that it didn't come easy for them to be in Innsbruck, and just to see the resourcefulness of how some of the team leaders managed to crowdfund, to continue to knock on the door of the associations, authorities, sponsors, to get the team over, and how much they dedicated to making sure that they will perform to their best, despite it's a very new environment to many of the athletes to be in Europe, in Innsbruck, to do these races. And I think it's what sport is about, in a way, what trail running is, in a way it is, to overcome all these challenges. And seeing, for example, the first time the Tamahu Maras joining the race as well. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, from reading the books, like what legendary runners they are, and it's just, I think we are at the beginning of something really great.
Jeff, and if I can share another highlight before it escapes my mind. It wasn't visible because it was something that we did behind the scenes, but there were already 7 potential hosts interested in 2027 World Championships. So we're running an observer program. Yeah, we did an observer program with the Frank people who were there to understand what they need to do in 2 years' time. And then there were 6 or 7 other delegations interested in the event. Seeing that there is so much appetite really confirms our original hypothesis, our 2017 hypothesis, that we might have a good product here. Regions worldwide, mountain resorts, especially with climate change, if you think about it, mountain resorts worldwide have to diversify their offer, those who cater mainly to tourists. And if you're looking at having a bigger grip with the outdoor, with the active tourism segment, hiking is one thing you want to promote, and by hosting these kind of events, essentially you're putting yourself on the world map of hiking routes. If you look at the coverage that the Austrian team put together, thanks to this wonderful NEP crew and the production manager who did a sterling job, yes, you're certainly watching performances from some of the best athletes in the world, but essentially you're watching this immersed in a hour-long commercial of the Tyrolean Alps, of the city of Innsbruck, of the Stubai Valley. This was by design, and this is where I think this is one of the reasons why I believe the future is bright for this event. It's the World Championship. I mean, it's one of a kind, and if we have regions worldwide vying to host the future editions of the event, the benefits will trickle down to the athletes in turn, because we will be in a position to demand more. If we have just one host, we have to be happy with whatever they offer. But if you have 5, you can start a little bit war between them, and the establishment of prize money is essentially a result of that, right? For 2025, one goal is to increase prize money. I cannot commit to that fully, but I can tell you that we're working really hard already. As in, already last week, there were meetings about this with potential funders to make sure that the 2025 trails become the richest mountain trail event ever.
Spoken like a true athletics organizer. But I personally, for me as an athlete, my highlight was seeing a lot of those maybe newer or smaller member delegations, bringing teams all the way to Europe. I'm an Asian-based runner, and seeing competitors coming from Philippines, Malaysia sending big teams, Hong Kong, India, Nepal. For those athletes, they're heroes back in their home country and competing with the world's best. I really do think that a forum like the World Championships sort of allows countries to showcase their best talent and can improve the pool that we'll continue to see at these events going forward. Just as we wrap up this segment, Canfranc, Spain, coming up in 2 years. What do we have to look ahead for the next edition?
Well, I mean, Canfranc, well, the Spanish Pyrenees, it's one of the most popular trail running destinations as well. So I'm sure that the courses will be great. And I think off the back of the Thailand edition and Innsbruck, we are already seeing a lot more interest in the championship. Just looking at our data, and I think that more teams will join, which to me suggests a lot more runners. This year we've got about 1,400, and I think in terms of numbers it could easily go close to 2,000. I spoke to some of the teams afterwards, especially the smaller teams. They are very interested in sending more runners to the event, and also I think because it's a combined event now, like a lot of the runners that are more traditionally the trail runners are now looking at, oh, this different type of racing, the mountain races. Yeah, I mean, like, how do we train? How do we send teams? Like 2 years, how do we prepare for those as well? So I think that there will be bigger teams, and the partnership, of course, it's already thinking, and will be starting to get to Canfranc and look at what needs to be done. So we've got 2 years, so I expect amazing stuff in Canfranc, and also yeah, I hope to see you there, like flying the Canadian flag again, Jeff.
They might need to introduce a masters category if I'm gonna be.
Actually, no. As a matter of fact, next year the same place will host the Masters Trail Running World Championships, which will serve as a test event to the World Championship. So you can go to Canfranc actually 1 year earlier than the others.
There you go.
No, look, what to look forward to for Canfranc. This is a landscape-based sport, and we're really striving to market it as such. Will it be like Innsbruck? No, obviously not. It's a different place. Canfranc has a population of 600. Innsbruck has what, 130,000. They have a different mountains. They have a different vibe, and that's the beauty of it. The event will just showcase the history of the place. The technicalities of the trail are extreme. Again, I'm no expert, but those who have run the event, those who have seen the GPS tracks and the files that the Canfranc team has shared with us are like, this is madness. Make it a bit shorter. So there will be people working on that to make sure that the event is right where it needs to be. I'm expecting, like I said, to contribute to make it the richest mountain and trail races ever. And yeah, different vibe. It's not the Alps, it's the Pyrenees. It's a very windy, very rainy area of the world, we said. As a matter of fact, the organizer, Alex Varela, yesterday, just to give you detail of how obsessed these people are with the details of their event and with the sport. He saw the weather forecast. Weather forecasts were pitiful for the French side of the event, and he deliberately went there to run the race course to see whether or not it's acceptable from a runner's standpoint to run where he wants you guys to run in 2025 under bad weather conditions. So the work has already started. We will go there in September on the occasion of the Canfranc, of the annual Canfranc to start doing the work that will take us to the World Championships in September 2025. Yeah,
well, it's very exciting, and I think with 2 full years to prepare, a little bit over two full years, it's really going to have a chance to be an amazing showcase, I think, for both Canfranc and for the sport. So thanks both of you for joining us. Really insightful to hear what you both had to share. Thank you. I'd also like to give a thanks to the ITRA production crew and our editor Sam Hill at Hill Adventures. You can find all of the ITRA Trail Talks episodes on ITRA's YouTube channel and on Spotify. So thanks everyone for listening, and that's it. Happy trails. Take care.